Let me now yield to the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Levin, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, and we welcome the witness and welcome the opportunity to have this joint hearing. I remember back when I was in the state legislature, we held joint hearings, and they were semi-revolutionary, and I think it's a useful approach. I think we all realize that when it comes to tax reform that it's integrated, that in a sense almost every issue relates to every other issue. But I'll resist the temptation to use the integrated nature of taxes to talk about other issues, including the difficult issues that we're facing and that divide us as to, for example, the taxation on high incomes. There's a new CRS report that very much questions the argument that the high income tax break promotes economic growth. But let me concentrate instead on this issue of capital gains. I think the issue as to how to tax capital gains will be one of the major and likely most controversial issues as we undertake tax reform. The reduced rate on long-term capital gains is one of the largest individual tax expenditures, as we know, adding up to hundreds of billions of dollars over a decade. It is also, as Mr. Baucus, as Max has said, a source of considerable complexity. I noted in reviewing the testimony for this hearing that by some estimates, fully half of the tax code is devoted to defining the difference between capital gains and ordinary income. And I'm not sure it's half, but I remember our tax course back in law school trying to wrestle with these issues, and it took up maybe half of the time. When there's a significant capital gains preference, there's a lot of pressure on these rules, because the greater the tax preference for capital gains, the greater the incentive to try to re-characterize ordinary income as capital gains. That, for example, is the source of the battle over carried interest. So it's useful for all of us to really understand the issues surrounding capital gains. That includes its history. We have mostly had a preferential rate, but as we know, the '86 tax reform eliminated it. And it includes the various arguments for why you might want a lower rate, whether that is double taxation of corporate income, inflation, the so-called lock-in effect, and an incentive to invest, among others. It's also important that we understand the evidence about the different rationales and how they hold up to reality. As mentioned by the chairman of the Finance Committee, most capital gains are realized by the highest earners. Some 71% of the benefit of the preferential rate on capital gains goes to those making more than $1 million a year, according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. So there's a real consequence from the preferential rate as to the progressivity of our tax system. Both our committees will have to wrestle with these issues as tax reform moves forward. So I look forward eagerly to this testimony and hope that it will help us inform that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. I now yield to